So I recorded my live set last week, and I think now that that's done, it's a good chance to give my Behringer Neutron a bit of a makeover, because much as I love it, I've got some aesthetic plans for my new rig, and this red, it doesn't really fit. So I'm going to try and pimp this a little bit. In order to do that, I'm going to have to pull out the patch cables. So the first thing I want to do is take one of these patch sheets, which is just a picture of the faceplate of the synth, and use a Sharpie to mark on where all these cables are going. And then if I want to recreate this patch for another live set, then I'll have the information there to hopefully put it all back to how it was. So I've given the whole of the faceplate a bit of a wipe down, just to get rid of any grease or dust that might make the new faceplate not stick very well. And I'm slightly embarrassed at how much filth came off it, but in my defence, this was second hand, so it's not just my grubby fingers that have been all over it. Since I've undone all the screws off the faceplate, I thought we might as well have a quick look inside. So this is the Behringer in bits. We've got the front panel with all the jacks are mounted, and then attached to that we have the circuit board that does all the work, and a bunch of chips. I'm going to have a close look at them in a minute. And inside there's another circuit board with the ribbon cable attached, because you can actually unplug this ribbon cable and mount the Neutron in a rack mount, Euro rack, which is a really nice feature. And what we've got at the back is a bunch of power filtering, and also the sockets, which are the switch jacks for the inputs and outputs. So this is the reason why my Neutron is currently getting all naked. I'm going to fit this faceplate, which is made by a company whose name I can't pronounce. Let me just check. Somewhere in Europe. Heinekroon. Shop at heinekroon.net. There we go. If you want to get your own replacement faceplate for your synths, particularly your Neutron. Yeah, I don't know why I'm talking in such a panicked fashion. Anyway, the reason I've gone for this kind of cream overlay is when I build my modular, I want to go for a kind of Soviet control panel, old test equipment kind of vibe, and I just think that the red of the Neutron doesn't really fit with that, so why not try something a bit different? So all I'm doing is, it's just like covering up your school books when you're a kid, if you're old enough to remember that. You've just got to align the edges and work your way along really carefully, making sure you don't get any air bubbles in. It's not super easy. It took me 2 attempts to get going. Yeah, I'm not feeling that confident, but let's see how I get on. It's turned out to actually be quite difficult, unsurprisingly, to line it up perfectly. I've had a few goes. What they suggest doing is lining up the holes on this side and working your way along carefully. But what I was finding was that within a couple of inches, the LEDs were off, and you could see quite a lot of the red underneath showing through, which I didn't want. So what I've done this time is I've actually lined up these LEDs as a starting point, and these, and now I'm going to work my way forward, and I feel a lot more hopeful about this. There's a lot to like about this as a well-made piece of, what should we call it? A well-made piece of decoration, I guess. It's tough, it's very slightly stretchy, and I've now stuck this down, I think 3 or 4 times, and it's still sticking. I wouldn't want to keep doing it because at some point it's going to run out of stick. But it's great, it's not bubbling up like Fablon. It's much tougher. I've been pulling on it quite a lot to get it to fit over the pots, and it's doing a good job of being manhandled by me, so I think that bodes well. And it's not going to be perfect, I don't think, but I'm much more happy with where I'm at as a starting point now, so I'm not seeing too much of the red underlay under these LEDs, so I shall keep going forwards and see where I end up. It's definitely not perfect. I've managed to get a hair trapped under the plastic, which is going to haunt me for the rest of my days. I did try and repeel it and remove it, but have failed, obviously. And there's a little bit of misalignment around the MIDI port and some of the LEDs. I felt like no matter how much I stretched it this way, it was still coming up a little bit short, which is weird because it's not here. So I don't know. I'm willing to put that down to my cack-handedness rather than small discrepancies in the tolerance of manufacturer. I did think doing the patch bay would be a nightmare, and it's not perfect. I need to work out a few bubbles, but actually the patch bay looks pretty good. And the fact that we've got a little bit of red showing from underneath, I mean, some of this will be under knobs, but some of it won't. It's not terrible because it goes with the colour scheme. So, yeah, the perfectionist in me is slightly bothered, but it's looking pretty good. And it's you know, the knobs still have to go on, and yeah, as a quick way of really changing the look of a key piece of kit, I think it's pretty good. So that's the faceplate done, screwed back in. The hardest thing actually was just putting the screws back in, because it's rack mount. It has the sort of screw inserts are loose and they slide up and down. There's probably a really clever way of getting them to stay where you want, but I tried a method of basically shaking and tipping and swearing until it all worked, and it's all fine. It's all done. Replaced a couple of the knobs with these chicken head dials because I think they look cool, and it's keeping with this kind of, you know, could this be used to blow up the world kind of aesthetic, which I really like. She's a bit of a low resolution fox, as Viz would call it. Looks really, really good unless you look super close, and you know, there is, if you look in the light, there's a few imperfections like the hair that I mentioned, and there's a bit of bubbling around the yeah, I think that's showing up on camera. You can see there's a little bit bubbling around the patch bay. The bubbling I'm still working on. I think probably when I'm watching telly I'll be running my fingers along it to reduce it. I don't think it's going to completely go. There's a little bit of lifting around the screws. It's not perfect, but I am quite cack-handed and it looks pretty good. The other thing I have for pimping purposes are these really lovely wooden end cheeks that were made by a company in the US called Sweet Cheeks. Sweet Cheeks! And these are laser etched with the Neutron logo and this really lovely Neutron design off the Behringer, and it will just replace these plain wooden end cheeks. And it's a complete indulgence. There's really no reason to do this, but look at them. Look at them. They're so nice. It's definitely not perfect, but I think I have to thank Sweet Cheeks Audio and Heinekroon for basically making me think rude sex thoughts about my synth, because it looks pretty spectacular. I'm very happy with that. If you've pimped your synth, let me know, send me a picture, I'd love to see. And I'll put the links of both the pot suppliers in the video description, and then if you too want to feel vaguely inappropriate thoughts about your synth, then you can too.